Hello, everybody. Today's episode is sponsored by Pugna, PVGNA, and by Unicorn, UNI, KRN, and you'll hear plenty about them later on. Proud has got his thesis on the best way to bet. That was very interesting to me, so we'll hear more about that later, and, all the regular, so enjoy the show. All right, everybody, hello and welcome to Theorycraft Thursday. I am your host, Ursinity. I'm here with my lovely, pristine co-host, seasonal spirit and whatnot, Proud.
Hello, it is of course me, Proud.
Perfect. We are everyone's favorite Scrabble podcast. We are at a high viewership, listenership-wise, because of course everybody's been playing Scrabble with all of their family members. I don't know why I had to search my brain for the word family, but all their family members they've been playing Scrabble with over the break, possibly losing, hopefully winning. So we're in the Scrabble kind of mood, aren't we, Proud?
Yeah.
What was the best word that you put down this week while you played Scrabble? I'm sure you played hundreds of games of Scrabble over the course of this week.
Yeah, my best word was... This is a bad segment.
I don't think that's a legal word that you can do.
I got all of them in one turn, though. That's why it was good.
Well, you got me beat. My best word was kumquat, and it was a lot of points. Let's see, kumquat. That would be 7, 17. That'd be 20 points without any variant. Without any variants.
Mine was 69.
Do you actually play Scrabble, Proud, ever?
No, I've played once maybe, but
okay.
I don't believe in words,
I took you for a Scrabble player. I feel like you'd be good at it.
Yeah, but the alphabet, who came up with that?
That's the Latin people. I feel like I should know the answer to this question.
Which one?
I'm which person?
Yeah, which one of them? Do you even know?
I don't know. I'm tapped, dude. You got me beat.
Yeah, so you're playing Scrabble, this game all about the alphabet. You don't even know shit about it. You don't even know who made it.
That's fair. I can't argue with that. I play a lot of Scrabble. It's like my family game, and I think of myself as being good at Scrabble, but it's one of those games, kind of like Dota actually. So that's how we'll transition. It's one of those games where you think you're good until you play against somebody who's actually good, and you're like, oh my god, I'm terrible. Kind of like chess. Chess is another one. I'm pretty good at chess for a random person, but I'll get absolutely obliterated by anybody that's actually good at chess. And I had that experience with Scrabble recently, where
kind of like being the best person at Smash Bros. At your middle school, and then you go to a tournament, and then someone picks Fox, and you're like, man, Kirby's not that good, is he?
And then you yell at him, you're like, yo, Fox is the easiest top tier hero.
You say, that's
punk.
Cheap.
Yeah.
Don't use that
if you were
move.
really
it's
good,
cheap.
you'd play Peach or something.
Well, Peach is good.
Yeah. Well, I know Fox in Smash. Apparently, I read this recently. Fox is the easiest of the top tier competitive people. That's apparently the flame that they put on Fox players.
Okay.
Or like Dota, you're good within your stack that you play with regularly, but then you play with random people, and you're like, oh my god, I'm feeding.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so Scrabble's great. Anyway, let's stop talking about Scrabble and talk about Dota 2, shall we?
Shall we?
Oh god, I need a counter about how many times I say certain phrases. So how's your week in Dota been, Proud? How's the holiday been treating you?
My time's been good. I think that I forgot to take my meds yesterday and I lost 3 games in a row, but I definitely took them today and I won 4 games in a row. And the day before, I also won 4 games in a row. So I'm doing good. I've recovered, I think, about 500. When did the fucking MMR, the badge recalibration shit happen?
Was that December 1st?
Yeah, so in maybe about 3, almost 4 weeks, I've gained 500 MMR.
Yeah, so, after losing 800 for the recalibration.
Yeah, the recalibration did drop me a good solid 800, but it's getting back there. So your MMR will shine through at some point. 500 in 4 weeks is pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's a lot. Are there any standout heroes? I know one of them is both of our standout heroes.
Jakiro, QoP of Pain and Juggernaut. I'd say those are my biggest babies.
Yeah. I have also been playing a boatload of Jakiro. He's been my standard hero as well. I think, let's see, I'm looking at my page. In the last week, most of my ranked games were Jakiro. I don't play that much in unranked because, like, why would I, unranked, I'm just kind of playing whatever garbage that I want to practice. But in ranked, it's like, if I have to first pick a support, I'm like, dude, I'm playing Jakiro or Rubik, and that's it. There's nobody but Jakiro and Rubik that I first pick.
Yeah.
And the only reason I don't pick Jakiro and instead I pick Rubik is because I want to have more fun, because Rubik is more fun. But Jakiro is always the right answer to all my problems.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
It's kind of disgusting, actually. So Proud put out on Patreon. It's open for everybody, even if you're not a patron. As of Monday, he put out a Jakiro specific episode. So check that out if you're interested in Jakiro. We won't drone on too much about Jakiro since you have. I forget how long that episode is, like 30 minutes or something.
It's like 50.
Okay, close enough. So if you want to hear about Jakiro, you can go to our Patreon. And again, you do not have to be a patron. That is free for everybody. So other than that, my week in Dota, let's see, I was in a real low point the last week or so, but I'm bringing it back. I was on I think I lost 9 out of 10 ranked games when I was recording, right before recording last week's podcast. And then after that, I continued to lose for a couple days.
Right.
But as of like 2 days ago, I've been winning again. I made back, let's see, I was streaming yesterday, twitch.tv/4thspirit, and I won 2 games on stream. And I won 1 other game the day before that. So I made back 75 of my 200 lost MMR. So we're on the up and up. And to be fair, I was on a big winning streak before that. So I had a losing streak coming. I just wish it did not happen all at once in ranked.
Well, you get them out of your system early and you're good.
Yeah. Like you said, I've been playing tons of Jakiro. I played, probably the only real standout game for as far as like my perspective goes, because I actually had a bunch of really good games, even losses that were just like nice competitive like hour-long games. I had a Centaur game yesterday I was just terrible. Like, I made some good plays in the late game, but my early game was terrible. I got counterpicked into oblivion, and I just was not good that game, but it was a super epic game. The only game that I will say I had a lot of fun on and that made me really think about Dota rather than just going through the motions of playing was I played a Lina game. Let me pull it up here. I tried a weird build that was kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but you know those builds that you do only when you're losing? Like, you'd never plan, like you never start a game and say, hey, I'm playing Lina, I'm going to build 3 dead-end mid-game items, but in some games you're like, I have to do this, and then you do well because of it. So in this game, let me find my exact build order. So in Lina, in general, what you're doing is you're going, null, bottle, arcane boots, and then you build Yule's Bloodstone, or some people just rush Bloodstone. Then after that is situational stuff, but you're basically rushing for that Bloodstone, and you get Yule's first. What I did in this game, I just got like wrecked to oblivion. I had to play, the mid matchup was Lina versus TA, which is an amazing matchup for TA and a freaking miserable matchup for Lina. So I was already off at a bad start. We've lost like all our lanes. But what I did this game that ended up, we still lost, but I actually ended up doing quite well, was I went null, bottle, mana boots like normal. Then I finished my Yules, but then after that I disassembled my mana boots, got an Aether Lens, and at level 10 I opted for 25 damage instead of 100 cast range because we had a Drow on our team, so I was actually dealing decent damage, so I wanted to amp that up a bit. And I got an Aether Lens because I was too poor to transition my mana boots into anything useful like a Bloodstone. Then after that, I finished Phase just for like, the immediate benefit that Phase gives you, like for 2 fights in a row, where it's like, all right, I have 24 more damage. Also, I have Phase movement. Also, I'm super fast because I'm Lina already, so I'm basically moving at max move speed. Then after this, I built yet another dead end item and built a Kaya. So at 28 minutes, I had Phase boots, Kaya. I sold my bottle to get the Kaya because I just really needed it for some fight, if I recall correctly, and a Yule's. And then after that I built an Orchid, and I was working on Shivas at the end. And it was one of these builds where just reading those items out, like, you're not in a game, those items do not transition into late game, but they did give me an amazing power spike despite the fact that my team was, I think we were 20k behind for basically the entire game after like the 30-minute mark. And we brought the game to 45 minutes. But it was a really fun build, honestly. Like,
yeah,
I don't see myself doing this build in a regular game where I'm not getting dominated, absolutely. But the synergy between Kaya and Aetherlens was really nice. And Yules is just always good, of course. So it was just a very fun game that really got me thinking about how I play Lina and how I could possibly make these items that don't really work together together. So that was fun.
Yeah, one of the things about Dota is it's always good to be able to continue to be strong as the game progresses, but also like there are certain builds that are strong at certain times, and if you just happen to win the game when they're strong or just have a big enough advantage the second they become strong, like you can still win. You know, like if you're against like when you're against 5 carries, the issue, I think what everyone always fucks up is they feel like they need to push immediately and they're trying to high ground at 20 minutes. When in actuality, like you should just play the game normally, and then you'll hit everyone's like decent mid game power spike or mid late game power spike at a good time, and then win because 5 carries can't all have farm.
Yes.
So like you can itemize for 30 minutes and just win at that. Like you don't have to just all be early game or have, you know, your plan be able to go to 50 minutes. If you do feel like, you know, you can take advantage of a good power spike, do it. And even if it doesn't win you the game, if it puts you in advantageous enough position, you can just let your like just massive throbbing net worth overpower any amount of inefficiency in your build.
That's a really good point, actually. I think you raise it's an important point within builds of effective net worth versus kind of like investment net worth. So like on Lina, continuing this example, when I was at 28 minutes and I had a Kaya and Aetherlens, Phase Boots, and Yules, this is all very effective net worth. All 4 of these items are doing things for me in the immediate sense of it. Like the second I got that Kaya, I was doing more spells. The second I got that Aetherlens, I was getting more range and more LSAs off and stuff like that. Whereas if I had a Bloodstone, A, that takes me a long time to get, but B, it's more like a investment item where you're thinking, I buy a Bloodstone so that I can dominate for 10 minutes and then get to the point where I'm having instant respawns and whatnot.
It would be the question here is like, do you want a Soul Booster or do you want an Aether Lens and half a Kaya?
Exactly.
Like, I would rather have, for this one fight, I would rather have an Aether Lens and half a Kaya than a Soul Booster. Like, what does that even do for you? Yeah, I agree. And even once you get the Bloodstone just makes Lina more Lina. It doesn't change her in any meaningful way.
Absolutely. So that was a very insightful game for me. I think
that makes sense.
One of the things that we all kind of wrap this up into a more general topic. One of the things that I find myself running into is that a lot of us are tied into builds, and especially, I would say, at lower MMRs or people playing unfamiliar heroes, you get tied into builds where you say, all right, I'm playing Spectre. I know some minor variations, but I'm always going to go for Radiance. Or I'm playing Naga Siren, and I'm always going to go for Radiance. Radiance is probably the simplest example to illustrate this topic. But it's very important, whether it's in practice, like this Lina game that I just had, where I did a weird build I'd never thought of doing, or it's premeditated, like saying, oh, if I do have to fight, I am going to do this. It's very useful as both a thought experiment and as a way to grow as a player, to explore not necessarily weird builds, but adapting your builds. Because if you get tied into, oh, I'm playing Lina, so every game I go Mana Boots, Bottle, Yules, Bloodstone. If you do that every single game, sure, it's right most of the time. But when you run into situations like I did, if you continue to try to force that build, you're just going to lose faster. So it's very important to kind of explore within the realm of your hero and say, all right, I have these problems, how do I fix them? Rather than just saying, well, I'm playing Lina, so I'm going to build a Bloodstone, and then I'm going to get an MKB later, and I'm going to get, you know, X, Y, and Z. It was very educational. Okay, so let's do our segment. So you had a really interesting idea that I think you're going to flesh out way better than I am. So I'm just going to intro it, and then you can go off.
Sure.
So this week's segment is going to be all about the geometry of team compositions and what makes a strong geometric shape that has good foundations. I don't know anything about math.
You just want a shape that has good coverage and interacts well with the enemy team's shape, I guess.
Would you call it a Dota decahedron? like a dodecahedron.
Well, how many sides is that?
How many sides do dodecahedrons, dude? Dodeca, isn't that like 32?
I Google it. Dodecahedron.
I'm looking it up. Dodecahedron is 12 flat faces.
No, we're looking for. Well, if you include both ancients,
number
I guess
of edges
12.
30.
Yeah,
I was right on 8 edges.
Okay. Well,
I built one of these once. That's it.
All right, let's see.
10-sided
shape. A decagon. Yeah, we'll just do a decagon because when I'm talking about, I'm talking about 2-dimensional. Like, I'm not gonna. There's no fucking air attacks in this game, buddy.
Well,
there are things that can go in the air, but they're not treated any differently besides the pathing.
But there are some things that are like just total third
that
factor.
Only target the air.
About
no.
this.
All right.
Well, some things target air.
Everything targets air because it's the exact same targeting function as being on the ground.
I don't want to think too hard about this.
Okay.
I don't want to think too hard about this. So explain to me what you mean by the geometry of a team composition and what makes a good one.
So in general, the way I like to think about it is the shape of every individual hero's area of influence and how they are most likely, what ground they will cover in the space of a team fight. So for instance, a hero like Tidehunter, the way he's going to work in a team fight is he's going to like blink forward and do a big AoE thing, or be in the middle of your team and do a big AoE thing. Anyway, Tidehunter has a large circle, and it's a kind of like a one-use thing, but more or less you just think around, okay, Tidehunter is a large circle. We've got that kind of taken care of, so we don't need like this large base of space is covered for, but we don't have, let's say, something like a smaller line kind of deal. Tidehunter's not a good example because he just is a big fucking blotch on your canvas. You can't really see a lot with that. I'll say Pudge. Pudge is a perfect example. Pudge's team fight is just a block. He's just like a small circle just of where he is. That's where he can dismember. And then a line, which is where he can hook. So he doesn't do a lot of AoE in a fight. He doesn't really claim a ton of space, but he kind of like hunkers you down where you are. So you would want to pair a Pudge with someone that will have a nice kind of base of stuff like a Tidehunter, more or less. Their cooldowns don't really mesh too well, but that's kind of what I think of. Like with Pudge, I almost always like to pair him. Like one of the reasons that Jakiro is so good is Jakiro is like a very good mix of forms. He's got a line stun. So he's got like a really solid line going for him, but it's also pretty wide. So it can kind of take the space of your AoE disable and you're like, trying to like lance forward line kind of thing. And also he has a decent like kind of AoE base of damage that's close to you with his dual breath. So he does a little bit of far range control and he's got stuff like kind of close to you. So if you have Jakiro and Pudge in the same thing, you have like a pretty solid base. Like if each of these was like a color that had 50% opacity or something, or whatever, you would put like a Jakiro and a Pudge in the same place, and that circle would just be like very dark. Like this is totally under your control, and you would be able to kind of like lance out in certain small directions, but you wouldn't be able to exert a great deal of AoE control like far away from you. So you might pair that with something like if you had an Earthshaker with that, then you would have a really solid base with your two heroes, and then your offlaner could be like, Earthshaker also does have a fissure that's kind of like a line. So you have 3 heroes that all are able to do things like to people that are very far away. And then also the way Earthshaker works is you have a blink, and that can be any radius around your starting point, and then a pretty big AoE for him doing all his shit. So now you have this like solid base and some lines that you can throw wherever you want, but also like another big circle that you can claim any other piece of like area of control around you. And so you have like good little point targeting if you need it, and you have like a solid base of doing shit. And you kind of need to plan around what shape of stuff you really need based upon what cores you have. So for instance, if I have a sniper, I want a really solid base around my hero, and maybe just like 1 or 2 point targets on the outside. But the most important thing is if like my Pudge and my Jakiro are near my sniper, and then my other my other offlaner could be something like an Abaddon or an Omni Knight or an Underlord or something that's just going to give me more and more control, like in my base. Like I wouldn't really want a Bat Rider with the Sniper, because Bat is just going to like go far away and then kind of force us to move along with him. And Sniper's a very solid like base of control that just does damage everywhere. But once you get in on him, it's just shitty. Actually, I would say he's like a fucking a circle with like nothing in the middle. So you need shit to like protect the you know, the soft, mushy middle that is your Sniper. Does some of this make sense?
Kind of. I didn't realize we were literally talking about geometry.
Yeah, no, I have synesthesia, and this is how I think about team compositions, is in shapes.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. The thing that really gets to me that you mentioned was the way that I visualize these kind of things is in opacity, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Where you have some heroes like Tidehunter. If you've pictured Tidehunter as an AoE, like the AoE circle of like a Ravage, that's like it's a widely effective ability, but its opacity is like, I don't know, 30%, let's say, because it's effective, but it's only effective for that time. Yeah. It's not effective for the rest of the time.
And if
whereas
they BKB during that time, like, it's worthless.
BKB, the counter to opacity, meters everywhere. Whereas Sniper is a very fine pointed, high opacity hero, but the areas at which he affects are much smaller. Yeah. So Sniper might be 100% opacity and is a super dark circle, but it's only affecting this small area. And then even within Sniper's toolkit, you have Shrapnel, which is like another 50% opacity spell, where it's like, you know, it's effective, but it's not doing anything consequential. I think of carries and some certain many mids, I should say, as being heroes that they make much more definitive movements and much more definitive actions. So their opacity is much higher, but much more finely focused. Yeah. Whereas a hero like Jakiro, he does a lot of things and and his range of effectiveness is very large, but it is not he does not make as many definitive actions, right? If you put down an ice path, that is to set up for somebody to then do a definitive action. Whereas if you are a Spectre and you haunt on somebody, that is already making the definitive action. So that's kind of how I separate it in my mind, at least.
Yeah, there's damage and control to think of. Like, a good example of Spectre is Haunt is, you know, like, it fills, you know, the whole area of your fight, but relatively, you know, shallowly. It's like, you know, like 20% opacity or some shit like that. But it's like everything, so that's really good. So you'd want to accent that with a couple very good kind of pointed individual shots. Talking a bit more about the geometry sort of thing, I would think of if your carry is a Phantom Assassin. What does Phantom Assassin look like when she fights? She's in the starting point, and then she's immediately all the way on the other side in the middle of her opponent's shit, throwing daggers and jumping in there. So what you would want with Phantom Assassin is other heroes that can just go to the other person's part of the fight, and maybe like one person to hold your territory pretty well. But you know, you'd want to pair a Phantom Assassin with like a Slardar 4 and a, I don't know, Sand King's a shitty mid or offlaner, but let's say in like a Brew offlane that's also gonna blink in and do that shit, and your 5 would want to be up like a Rubik or some kind of blink support, and you want your mid to be like a Storm or a Queen of Pain or something, like all these heroes that can mimic the shape that the Phantom Assassin kind of does in her fights, or mimic the kind of path that she does. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I hope it makes sense to everybody listening. It's an interesting, so I think everybody thinks about Dota differently, right? And it's all about, I talked about this briefly with B recently, but it's all about finding what way, the best way for you to visualize and to conceptualize Dota that works for you and makes the most sense, right? So this kind of team comp geometry makes a lot of sense to certain people who learn and memorize and visualize in certain ways, just like you were saying. Whereas kind of like, this is a really old episode at this point, but a lot of people have probably listened to it. And we talked about draft budgeting. It's a similar concept, but visualized in a very different way, right? To just recollect from that. Draft budgeting was more of a numerical value of saying, all right, like if I have 1,000 points to spend between 5 heroes, if I invest 600 points into stunning, then that means that I'm only going to possibly have 400 points to apply all of the other necessary mechanics that are in a game. So then, you're going to be limited on silences, you're going to be limited on deep push, you're going to be limited on X, Y, and Z. So similarly, the kind of geography would just visualize that concept in a different way. So again, I would kind of wrap it up. I mean, not that we should wrap it up, but there's plenty to talk about, but I would kind of bring it all together to say that it is valuable to be able to think about Dota in different ways that suit different mindsets and allow you to conceptualize different stances and different ways to kind of wrap a very complicated game up into simpler visuals and stuff like that.
Yeah, this is also how I deal with, like, one of the best things to do in Dota is before you do something, like, think about how it's going to go. And when you're making your team composition, you kind of know the actions that most heroes make in a fight. For instance, Medusa stays fucking still. Spirit Breaker charges in a straight line that can be interrupted. So you kind of see, like, if you were to just, like, draw a circle on a piece of paper and you draw the path that Spirit Breaker is going to run in the fight. It's going to be like a line, and you draw the path that Spirit Breaker that Medusa is going to make. It's going to be just like a fucking point. So you're like, okay, Medusa probably doesn't work well with Spirit Breaker because Spirit Breaker goes into them, and Medusa is just kind of fucking there. And then similarly, if you look at like some natural, really good synergies that people know of, like Faceless Void, for instance, he's really good with Invoker and Jakiro, for the reason that he creates like a big, piece of AoE control that's kind of far out. It's not always going to be on top of you. It has to actually not be on top of you because it's a chronosphere. But it's that like, relatively like mid-range, far away from your team. So you have like your base of your team is a dot, and then Faceless Void's chronosphere is like kind of like the midpoint where that is. And Invoker's best damage comes from when people are like, 500 or more units away from them, and he can drop the meatball and let it roll. And Jakiro similarly is really good because his lines go in a really far way. So you see Faceless Void is like the point, and then a circle away from that. And then similarly, Invoker is like a point, and his damage is, like a big circle kind of away from him. And Jakiro is a point, and then his damage is a line pretty far away from him. So like those very simple synergies, if you just kind of look at the way that they happened and the direction the damage is coming from, like that's the geometry of what's going on, in my opinion, or in my mind.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. It only gets difficult when you are talking about those the heroes that vary in the amount of in the different kinds of geometry with which they control or they supply.
And like getting items changes shit too. Like Sven is just a fucking spot until he gets a blink dagger, and then it changes everything.
As is everything in Dota, it only gets more complicated the more you think about it.
Yeah.
It starts as a very simple thing where you're like, oh, it's like circles, and some are big and some are small and some are really dark and some are really light. And then you're like, oh, well, actually there's some triangles there. And then, you'd think a little harder and you're like, well, there's also squares.
Is that you always want some damage and some control that's going to be some kind of decent circle that fills out where your team can get to some point. Like if all you got is like little lines and the enemy team is a big blob, like you're never gonna deal with them because all you got is like little lances to throw out. But if you at least have some sort of circle that you can place on the enemy blob, that'll balance it out and do some shit. And then you can like your big circle kind of wears them down to the body of damage that I often talk about. Like you have a big circle, it puts them down to some degree, and then the targeted lances, kill the weak points. Kind of how it works. The one hero that I love in terms of this is Luna, because it really helps to actually visualize the way that her damage works, to really think about her. So if you have like 10 targets around Luna, or like 20 all placed around like a Monkey King circle, if Luna just starts throwing glaives, it's going to hit a target close to her and then bounce to other targets around that, and then those are going to bounce to other targets around that. So the first time you hit, it may bounce between three little monkeys like really close to you. And the next time it hits, your glaives are going to bounce off to targets really far away from you. So Luna's weird in that she's like a really concentrated dot on top of her, but she like kind of spreads out as it goes on. So Luna can be like a solid, like a nice range of damage, especially when she gets Dragonlance. But her most damage is pretty close to melee range. That's why like Lifestealer sucks against her. It's because he just kind of has to walk in, and then he gets fucking shredded by all these glaives bouncing back and forth. But
it's like a gradient.
Yeah, but like a hero who's farther away, like the glaives have to travel way more distance to actually be hitting them. Yeah, so that's I always just figured Luna was kind of funny with that. Like not a lot of heroes have this weird gradient where like they're really strong up close to them, but their damage falls. Yeah, it's weird, but I like it.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. I had never really thought of Luna like that. Although, again, like you said, it is a good example of kind of a gradient of damage where it's really dark in the middle of the circle, and then it's still the circle still extends farther. Whereas a hero like Sven has a very dark but distinct circle that is just like, hey, it's this 350 AoE or however large his cleave is. Things like what? How long is this cleave? Like 275 or something?
I don't know, however much cleave is normally.
Yeah, it's a bunch. Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. I'm glad you wrapped it up with the Luna comparison because it got away from me briefly. So what would you say applying this? Because one of the things that we always run into, both a lot of times from just people talking in Discord about episodes, when we talk about team comps, the thing that always gets brought up when we talk about well-rounded team comps, and like you said, like if you have a very geometrically sound team comp, what about the exceptions, right? The exception would be, for instance, a hyper specialized team comp that is all fine pointed damage, where you just like run at a team and you have like, all right, we just burst people instantly. Or another, probably the best example whenever we talk about rounded team comps, it would be a Drow strat. A Drow strat is good, but also does not have the kind of
it absolutely does. That's what every good Drow strat is. That's why the 4 and the 3 aren't ranged heroes most of the time. Actually, ever. That's why you have a Drow strat that's Drow and then Puck. So Drow very close, kind of squishy, but some damage on like an outer circle. Puck can kind of be anywhere and is a good base of control and damage. It's kind of like a median gradient for the entire area. And then you have an offlaner like an Earthshaker or some kind of like every Drow strat has some kind of tanky offlaner like that makes space. And so then you have a big circle that you can like place somewhere or to make your base very tanky. Like if you have a Tidehunter, like your Tidehunter just sits kind of around your Drow and they can't really engage onto it. And then you have a 4 that's something like a Slardar or an Earth Spirit or something that can lance forward and catch people for you. And then your 5 is, like a save hero to make yourself really dense. So you have really strong ways to lance out, and you have 1 or 2 ways to lance and catch like one person with crowd control. And then your base is just very strong and tanky and hard to engage into. But like that's good Drow strats. The shitty Drow strats are the ones that are 5 heroes, and they're all just individual lines forward with auto attacks, and then they just get glommed on, and they're just a bunch of lines. They can't do anything to a big blob hitting them. So that's perfectly applicable to a Drow strat.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense. I was not even visualizing it that way. Okay. Do you have anything else? Excuse me, Jesus Christ. Do you have anything else to add before we talk a little bit about our sponsors and then illustrate?
Just in terms of exceptions, I think that there's never an exception that involves just having a bunch of tiny lances. It's like a bunch of lines, like every hero that just does shit in a line is not gonna be good unless you're just gonna stomp the game anyways. Like a bunch of AoE, cool. Like you covered the entire fucking circle with your influence. That's great. But a bunch of little lines is always gonna get run through because that just like lines can't kill blobs. They can kind of like cut them, but then the blob is still gonna blob on them. Like if you just have a bunch, like there was one game that I watched before, it was like right after TI2, and it was like Fnatic, and they drafted this shitty composition that had this was when like No Tail and Fly were on Fnatic with Era and Hani and all them, but it was like Bane and Batrider and Phantom Assassin and like some other shitty and Bounty Hunter and like all these heroes that just did mostly single target damage besides Bane's like little fire thing. Oh yeah, and their mid was TA, and it was just like, all right, like your shape is a fucking line, and they have like Sven and Dragon Knight and fucking Tidehunter and shit. Like you're just gonna try to draw a line through these people, and they're just gonna envelop you, and that's what happened. Like they just all threw their 1 nukes in a line and like got one person, and the rest were just like, okay, you're all fucking dead now. I mean, that's kind of the answer to like don't have single target instead of AoE, or like AoE is better than single target. If your team has no AoE, of course you're gonna lose every team fight, but that you can visualize that very simply and be like, oh shit, my whole team is a fucking line and they got a big ass circle. You lose. Yeah.
And similarly, if you only have AoE, then, your weakness is if they have a
Well, it depends how good your intensity. AoE is. If all you have is AoE and it's a bunch of good AoE, yeah, I mean, that's what teamfight compositions are. I mean, the answer to having a really strong blob is the enemy team just like not ever touching it and just staying away from it. Like you beat team fight compositions with like split pushing and pickoffs and stuff, right? Like if the blob spreads out, then all the like control circles don't overlap anymore, and it gets more or less and less like opaque or whatever, or more. I don't even know how that word works, but yeah, like does that make sense?
It makes sense.
It's like we've lost to teamfight comps that are like a fucking, Warlock and a Sand King 4 and a Tide 3, and it's just like too much shit, and we just fucking lose every fight.
Yeah, well, what I'm thinking more about is that when you have a ton of AoE, you do not have the fine-pointed sources of damage in general. Like, right, so in that situation, if you have a Warlock 5 and you have a Sand King 4 and you have a Tidehunter 3 and you have like a Leshrac 2 and your 1 is, I don't know, whatever, it doesn't matter.
No, that matters.
Well, I know, but I'm trying to...
Name one.
Okay, your 1 is a Medusa. So you have 5 heroes that have a lot of AoE control in this team fight and a lot of AoE damage, right? But if the enemy team has a core, let's say like an OD that needs to be very specifically dealt with and bursted, you in some situations are not going to have that because all you have is AoE. Right, like your Medusa is not going to be able to dish out 2,500 damage right away to kill an OD that is 6-slotted, right?
But even if the OD gets like stun locked, which you don't even need to focus on, or he BKBs and you walk away from that period, or whatever. If they take out one hero, then you got someone else to do all the AoE control. Like it's not a game over situation. Whereas
it's not a game over. You're right.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the issues with that are much, 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 much rarer. And mostly relegated to the fact that OD counters Medusa in this situation. And
well, I mean, you could use any comparison. Like, you could have, like...
I can't really think of many AoE one-position heroes. It's like Luna, kind of.
Yeah, Luna, kind of. Well, I was thinking more from the enemy team. Like, even if it's not an OD that's countering Medusa, if you have, like, a really high-value Sven, and he has, like, even... Let's say
Medusa's great against Sven. You win that game easy. Warlock with his... I'm just saying, like, there's very few, like... With those heroes, there's very few things that are like, all those AoE disables don't bother me because I'm such and such hero. Like, there's very few heroes that see AoE disables and they're like, sick, this is my time to shine.
Oh, I just think of it more like certain heroes require a single target to be dealt with because they naturally build a BKB, let's say. And let's say you have like an all AoE team comp and then they get a really well-timed BKB on a Sven and then all your AoE doesn't matter. Because, yeah, sure, you control his team, but his team stays way far back, and then the Sven just runs through your team comp, and you have no single target disables to deal with the Sven, and you have no single target damage to kill the Sven. Similarly, like, if you're against a Lifestealer, right? Lifestealer is good against AoE.
But that's more of a category of, like, not being able to deal with BKB piercing stuff than single target stuff. Like, if your team doesn't have... like Fiend's Grip isn't the only thing. There's, like, Black Hole also, Abyssal Blades, all that shit. Like, I mean... Yeah, like I'm just saying that it's you need very specific circumstances to go wrong with having a shit ton of AoE. Like erring on the side of having more AoE isn't. Yeah,
you'd rather have more
AoE
thing. Than more single target.
Yeah, it's not a problem that I would ever worry about on a team. Like the issue is more like, oh, we can't deal with Sven, then we have no single target damage. In most cases, like there are very few cores that, like if you just don't have any good cores that do single, like if you have a shitty core. Compare core duo between mid and safe lane, like that's I feel like if you focus on that as a different issue, then you're going to be better off.
Okay. Also, like
I mean, it's a fair point, I guess, but
I like certain heroes. Like again, I agree with you completely that the AoE is better in general, but there are a good amount of specific situations where you think I have all this AoE, but I need single target. Like if you're against a puck. It's a puck, you can have all the AoE in the world, but if he or she just dodges it well, or they have a Lincoln's, let's say, or they have a BKB, or they have a Yules, they can say, all right, I Yules through the Warlock's thing because Warlock thing is super obvious, and then I had a Lincoln, so Sangin didn't hit me. Whereas if you had like a Shadow Shaman, he would just single target lock down that puck for forever because he has one single target ability rather than a bunch of 2.5 second stuns.
Yeah,
that's more of the situation that I'm trying to get in on. Is that the reason the way that AoE spells are balanced, right? The reason why we don't just always enter a game and say let's just Yeah. Well, yeah, AoE, Disruptor, very good against Puck. The issue I'm just trying to get at is that there's a reason why we don't just enter every game and pick 5 heroes with AoE stuns, right? There has to be as though that may be an ideal situation for some of us.
We first picked Jakiro, I don't know.
Yeah, I also first pick Rubik, right? And Rubik is more single target.
His Q is an AoE when it falls.
Oh, that's fair, actually. That's fair. People first pick really Lion also is AoE. Also, you don't first pick Lion unless you want to lose.
Yeah.
I was gonna say you first pick CM, but she's also AoE and we hate her.
Yeah, she sucks.
Anyway, people first pick Shadow Shaman.
In general, as far as like your team composition goes, as far as your like supporting cast, your 3 through your 5, like there's very few situations where like you don't want at least 2 of those heroes to have some solid AoE on them. In terms of cores, like that's when you can give them a little more leeway with wanting to have just like a good matchup for the core more than worrying about what specific type of damage they do. Like that kind of idea is baked into whether or not it's a good composition. Like Sven is good against Chaos Knight. I didn't need to think about the shape of Sven's damage. Like shape is good against Chaos Knight. I just know that. I don't need to think about that shit.
To be fair though, he's good against Chaos Knight because of the shape of his damage being AoE.
Yeah, but I didn't need to like put that into the equation. Similarly, Luna is not good against Chaos Knight. Luna does kind of have some AoE, but the fact of the matter is Chaos Knight's illusions are so tanky that instead of dying to the glaives, they actually just soak all of them up and don't die.
And he has a BKB piercing disable. Jump.
But anyway, I'm saying like Chaos, like the way that Chaos Knight is kind of shaped, where he just is like a small line that slowly, comes into you. Luna on paper would do well with that, but just the dynamics of the core matchup itself, when you get in a granular detail, it's actually like not what you would think.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to compare to like literally everything, but in terms of your 3 through 5 and wanting your cores to do somewhat different things, like AoE mid and Invoker mid, PA safe lane, like that kind of thing. Like Invoker does the big and then PA does the target, like that. Yeah, it's a good mix.
Yeah, balance in all things.
Yes.
Okay, so for today's game, we're going to be illustrating this by picking a couple heroes relative to the game, and then when we come back after in a couple minutes, we will be talking about why we chose what we did, and specifically relative to the topic, what our hero's geometry was relative to the enemy team and why we chose to do so. That being said, before we pop into our game, we're going to talk briefly about our sponsors. So, of course, today we're sponsored by Pugna, PVGNA. Pugna is an online platform and community where high-skilled Dota players and coaches, I was going to say like us, but we're not coaches. Well, we theoretically are coaches to all of you, but we're not Pugna coaches. Pugna coaches generally are better than us.
I hate coaching.
I enjoy coaching. I've been doing a bit of it. Anyway, coaches create educational video guides on how to improve the game, learn new heroes, and help folks climb the ranks. So if you want to watch an LC guide, you want to watch a Luna guide, you want to watch a Wisp guide, you can find exactly what you're looking for on Pugna. The platform is totally ad-free, and each hero guide is divided into smaller videos so that you don't have to sit there for 2 hours if you don't need to, right? If you only want to know itemization on Night Stalker, you only look at that part. If you want to only learn about how to actually play the early game on Wisp, you just watch that part. You can learn in an hour or two things that took potentially hundreds of hours for people to innovate and learn and figure out and whatnot. And all those questions we ask when we see weird builds, those are the kind of questions that they answer. They say, all right, you don't need to waste time trying to learn how to build Butterfly on Sven. I did it for you, and this is why it's good.
Okay.
There's plenty of content for players of all skill levels, whether you're brand new or you're an intermediate player or you have played thousands and thousands of hours and you're a virtuoso. There's always something to get a little bit better at. You could try out Pugna for free for 30 days with our promo code FOURTH, FOURTH. You can find them on Twitter at PVGNA, Pugna, or on their website, pugna.com. We appreciate their sponsorship. Our other sponsor for today is Unicorn. Unicorn is, as everyone knows, everyone's premier esports outlet. Unicorn has totally legal and free-to-play esports betting everywhere, as well as real money betting if you're in the UK or Australia. You can also earn betting tokens, which are called Unicorn Gold, although there's also Silver, which is also another way of betting token. You use them for different things. You can get that through Unicorn Service Connect, CONNEKT. And you can also earn it by playing CSGO and League as well as Dota. You need to play ranked. So, like I said, the last few weeks, both of us actually have been earning some unicorn gold. If I was in my old stage of not playing ranked, I think I don't know if this would force me to play ranked, but it sure is nice to actually get something even when I lose games.
Yeah, that's fair.
You can learn more about Unicorn Gold and Unicorn Connect at unicorn.com/CONNEKT Connect. And their website again is UNIKRN. Today, we are going to talk about a game that we're going to be interested in looking at that's happening. Let's see. It's happening tomorrow, right? Yeah, actually, it's happening before. No. Okay, it's happening in like 6 hours. So it's probably up by the time you're listening to this, so you can actually immediately find out whether or not we're wrong. Proud and I were talking. We were trying to pick a game to talk about this week. And Proud said that it's better to talk about a game where nobody knows either team than it is to talk about a game where everybody knows both teams.
Yeah, the true gambler's situation.
Yeah. So in short, why do you think that's the case? Because it's interesting. I'm not an experienced gambler. I like Unicorn for fun, but I'm not the I'm not the thorough researcher. I'm the hey, I like EG.
There are two sides to it. One, okay, so the most people are fucking rubes, and they just kind of do whatever. And those are the people
They're great pitchers.
Those are the people that you fucking prey on.
That's a Rube Waddell joke.
Like your marks or whatever when you're at playing poker and shit. Anyway,
yeah, your mark.
Yeah, so that's what you fucking prey on. If there's a if there's a match that no one really knows about, that's when you can go to a thread or something. Just Google the match or try to find some kind of discussion. Whether it be there are a couple boards that aren't too frequented on Reddit. I think that are still active. People that I used to know and talk to who knew certain things, but it's very easy to just find out oh, this player is not playing today. They have a stand-in. You can go and see whether or not that one of the players on the team has been losing their pubs lately. You can do anything to get any modicum of information, and you're better off than all the people who don't know either team and just throw whatever points they have or money randomly on somewhere else. Yeah, that's the goal. Other way is that if there's one team that's very much favored over another, just check their record against each other and kind of go off that. So if one team won once and the other team won twice, it could be they're both evenly skilled, and it's gonna just come back around now. But people see that and they're like, oh, this other team's gonna win. But if it's an 80-20 split, that's a good bet. The things that you want to go on aren't the even bets that you think are right. They're the ones that you have more doubt in the better team than the odds show. When you were talking about that the Fnatic LGD game, if I knew the split was 30-70, I would have gone Fnatic for sure. That's much better. But if you ask me which team is going to win, I would say probably LGD. If you ask me what was the better team to bet on, it would be that would have been Fnatic for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's no point in winning 2 cents on a 55% odds, right?
Yeah, the only things I ever do are beyond the shadow of a doubt guaranteed, EG versus Boreal Esports. I'll put everything I own on that as far as, betting, other things when I was doing that. But yeah, I'll just if I have $80 of worth of, whatever, I'll just put that all on, and then I'll gain $5 for BG is never going to lose to Boreal. But for the most part, the things that I got the most on was at the International. I knew a decent amount about how teams were doing and who was winning against who in scrims, and how teams were feeling. And every team rallies at TI. Almost every team rallies at TI, and you really know if a team isn't going to. So I always just bet on the wildly imbalanced matchups. And also some teams are hiding strats and shit. TI is the fucking best. I made 800% value on TI4.
Wow.
Yeah, because you take all the low bets. But yeah, I only really look at bets that are imbalanced for the low end is my general opinion with Dota.
Okay, anyway, so on that, we have a game. Let's see, the odds are pretty. Let's see, what are the exact
They're even.
odds?
This is going to be a worthless diet.
No, they're not even. Oh, never mind. It's 76. So this is Rock Gaming versus Eclipse. This is for ESL 1. It's a best of 3. Eclipse Gaming is 76% over Rock Gaming's 24%. And the betting is almost done for this game already, so this is pretty final stats. So let's see. Eclipse Gaming.
Find these heroes and these teams in Dota buff.
They're like legit teams. This is like a pretty big tournament. They're just newer teams, and they're both Chinese teams, which is why I didn't know them. So Eclipse Gaming has Shadow on it, who famously was very good at, what was it, last TI?
He was their carry player.
Yeah, Mini, who I also know. And then I don't know a couple of their other players. Setsu, Ghost, Sep, and HYDSB.
All right, Eclipse, what was the other team? Rock, is it ROCK?
Rock Gaming, yeah. They have XY. Actually, he's not on their active roster.
Is it Rock.Y?
Yeah. Well, no. It's just Rock Gaming. They have DDR, IT, or LT, Shining, a bunch of Chinese characters I can't read, and Hitagi.
Okay.
They seem like
it's really balanced in Eclipse's favor?
Yeah, it's like 75% in Eclipse's favor.
Yeah. I would really bet on... I mean, I think they're very much likely to win. They're doing okay. Not that great. What's the split?
It's like 76-24.
No, I wouldn't go on that. I mean, most likely to win is Eclipse, obviously, but I don't think like if it was like 90-10, like 90-10 are ones that you go on, because the more and more it gets like the difference between 90-10 and like 91-1 is much more interesting and like worthwhile than like 49-51 as opposed to 50-50. I think that's how math works. Anyway, but yeah, like. Because if people are very sure about something, the odds will just like naturally keep getting pushed in one direction from my experience. Like if that bet was up for a long time, it probably would get more and more put on towards Eclipse's favor, and then I would go for it. But it's normally like people get really overconfident that one team is going to beat another, and that's when you go for the fucking YOLO plays. If like you throw a very meager amount and you get 10 times value, or you don't lose anything, or you lose like inconsequential shit. That's what I go for.
Okay, that makes sense.
This one doesn't meet that. 25% is not good enough.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So we're both selling on Eclipse, and I think this is a safer bet, but I was very interested when you mentioned that kind of theory around betting that I wanted to get into. So we'll see by the time next week.
Unknown, crazy Southeast Asian teams around right after TI4 was fantastic. That was a great period of time where it's just like is Lakel's gonna carry whatever random stack he finds himself with, or is this weird set of signature trust that you don't know any of the players on actually going to be the Golden Boys? Like it's great. That was great. I love that shit. Lakel's is a beautiful man. He could never pull it off though. Never. He's so good though.
Oh well. All right. So we'll be back after the break, hopefully with the winning music, and we will talk about why we picked the heroes that we picked. So goodbye, everybody. Well, I shouldn't say goodbye. I'll say see you soon.
Okay, here we go. Theorycraft Thursday, round 1. The stage of fate is set. Ready? Fight! The power of a Mars surges within me.
Every game, trialing new. Every game. All right. Hello, everybody. We are back. We have just completed our game. And as you can tell by the transition music, it was a win. So we're happy. That was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
It was a good game.
Proud was remarking after this game that we picked maybe the most perfect heroes to illustrate this concept. So I just want everybody to know that we're very proud of ourselves. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
Don't you?
I think so. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go over team comps.
Wait, before anything, I want to say I figured out why that Bristle died so quickly. It's because Doom had an ag, so he was broken the entire time. That makes sense.
Yep. Okay, so let's actually do pick order also.
Sure.
So the enemy first pick...
Let's talk about our shapes as we get through that.
Yeah, okay. So the enemy first pick was Venomancer.
Right.
What is Venomancer's shape, Proud?
Venomancer is a very, like a kind of concentrated circle and then a very light outer circle.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and in the damage department, that's Venom.
Okay, so and also control wise, he is a light, large.
Same
circle.
thing, like a circle around him, and then a very small circle on the outside.
Yep.
And as much as you kind of slow. Yeah.
Okay, so second pick from our team was Shadow Shaman, and then our third pick was Ricky.
Yeah, so this got us in a bit of a tizzy. So Shadow Shaman, if you look at him, he's just got like two disables, and they're pretty close to him. And yeah, he can like blink forward, but he can't do that in a team fight because he's super squishy. Like if he blinks in the middle of a Sven and a Shadow Fiend, he's gonna fucking die. So pretty much his disable is just kind of where you have your own territory figured out. And then he places wards, but also just kind of like away from him. Yeah, he can blink and place them, but that's like only for high grounding kind of stuff. So he's just kind of like a really small hunkered down dot in the middle. He really doesn't do a lot for your fucking for your circles, your shapes, your geometry.
And then
Ricky, similarly, he's a relatively small little AoE circle, a little bit of damage, a little bit of control, and it can kind of like be kind of far away from you because he has the escape mechanic of not dying when he's ulting, and he just can place a cloud and then walk away. But yeah, he's another like relatively small circle, but this one can be a bit far from where you start.
Yep. And it's interesting because Ricky, kind of like a lot of heroes, Ricky's, when you talk about this geometry, his circles of damage are very large, but his circles of control are very small. And I mean, of course, his damage is like a pseudo control because you don't obviously want to be in it.
Yeah.
But that was something I think is very useful to think about.
Yeah, he's got like a wide range to deploy his tiny circle. So like the circle can be pretty far away from your starting point.
Yeah. So the next pick for the enemy team was a bristleback.
Yeah. That's just kind of like a big circle of damage and light control. It's kind of not like everywhere, but a little bit in front of your own place of control because he can kind of like a little bit far from the starting point because he's just got to walk where he's got to be. It's not like he's going to blink forward and do shit. But yeah, he's just like a perimeter of bullshit.
Yeah. And then their next pick was a Shadow Fiend.
And Shadow Fiend is kind of similar to Luna, where there's like a really close locus of damage on him. But he's like ranged, so he can kind of go forward a little bit. So it's like kind of like a really dense circle around him, and then like kind of like a line forward, kind of like a test tube with a bulb, or like a dick.
A test tube with a bulb.
Yeah, like a test tube where it's like a flask. From like in like a fucking RPG, like it's got like a big kind of circle with like a stem coming up from it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, because he's got the three raises can hit like all in front of him, and they can stack on top of each other because the circles interlap, so it's like close to him and his ulti. But then he right clicks too, so yeah.
Then the sixth pick was Doom, and that's from our team. So right now our team is shaping up as Ricky, Shadow Shaman, Doom. Luckily, Proud and I had fourth and fifth picks, so really, like we said, we could optimize to illustrate this whole thing.
Similarly, is just kind of like it's like a dot, like a really dark dot. He's just got like a little point of control and a little bit of AoE damage, and he's like a very like the lightest shade of a little bit of control, like a hair's breadth outside of your area of control, and then a really dark dot a little bit beyond that. And that's kind of it. So like at this point, we've just got a tiny circle, a dot, and then a dot that can go far away. So our ability to control areas is pretty much relegated to the shit we own and not much else.
Yeah. And then you picked seventh, right? So yes. You picked, given all this information, you picked Monkey King.
Is that accurate?
Yes, I'm looking at the pick order right now.
Yeah.
You picked seventh, Monkey King.
Yeah, and that is the order, right?
Yeah, it is the order. I'm literally looking at it.
Yeah, one, and after one comes, two. Yep, that is it. Okay, yes. So the idea with the Monkey King was we have no ability to lance forward. Like the only real initiation or the only real like way we can engage on them that we have on our team besides like getting a perfect Doom off on an individual person alone. Because like even if Doom does get a Doom off, we have no control to lock them down from just running the fuck away. Is Ricky's ability to jump forward. So at that point, like if we want to have any offensive ability whatsoever, I also need someone that can jump forward. And we also have no AoE disable. And Monkey King, if you remember when I was playing him a lot, one of the things I really liked about him was that he was a carry that had weak, but he had AoE disable that goes very far. So Monkey King kind of solved the issue of we didn't have anyone to go forward and like catch people and be aggressive with to accent the Riki. And also gave us a little bit of AoE control that we were very sorely lacking. And then in addition to that, I have like a really large range around myself, so I can kind of provide that anywhere to make up for the fact that we're just a bunch of little dots orbiting in space. And then also my Wukong's command is a very large area of control that I can kind of place, but it normally needs to be a bit closer to us. But when we're high grounding, I can place it like very far away. And similarly, Shadow Shaman's only bit of area control is something that he can just place very far away, but then he's got to, like get back. So by picking the Monkey King, I give us a solid base around us so a Shadow Shaman can't just totally get shit on. They can't completely invade us. I have some AoE so that I have some like lancing AoE so we can catch people. And I have some like very far damage that can go, pretty far so that we can manage so that me and Ricky can take people, so Ricky's not just worthless alone. And then also my ult provides a little bit of AoE damage because of the Battle Fury, and it also is a bunch of guys hitting things, kind of like how Luna's glaives are AoE, even though they're technically single target things. So like, and none of these things I do incredibly well. Like I'm not great AoE control. I'm not great AoE stun. I'm not great AoE control. I'm pretty good at like getting places. But that's kind of about it. Oh yeah, and I'm relatively tanky, which makes up for the fact that our supports are fucking Ricky and Shadow Shaman. So like, Monkey King was kind of a little bit of everything. I kind of almost view him as like the Jakiro of carries. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? I kind of see it like that. Like he can scale if he needs to. He has some control, not the best, but whatever. He can force high grounds with his ulti. Jakiro can with his E. Like. So that's it kind of just covered every base, but nothing incredibly perfectly.
Yeah, it was another like
it rounded us out so that we weren't like severely off balance.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so their response was an 8th pick Sven, and then their 9th pick was Io. So also just for the record, each team had 1-2 stack and then 3 solo players. So it was the Io was partied with the Venomancer that picked first, just for the record. So it was not like an Io Sven specific pick. Anyway, so they picked Sven 8th and then Io 9th.
Yeah.
So how? Yeah.
Continue. Io, I guess, is a kind of weird thing to think about, but
he adds a third dimension to our 2-dimensional geography.
Yeah. I mean, they're just like a line, right? Because it's a line,
like a non-factor, honestly.
It's a line from Io to the person that, like, he's kind of like your home territory in that you don't want it to get encroached on and just destroyed. Only he can teleport where your home territory is going to be, kind of. But yeah, he's just like a line to another target you have, right? So like if one of your targets is like a Clinks that wants to be like behind the enemy in a point, Io is going to be a line to that. And then he'll be fucking in the middle of the enemy space. Fine.
Okay, so his zone, that when we talk about this geography, his zone is like the shadow guy from Naruto who makes the shadow that goes from himself to another person.
Right.
That is the shape with which his zone of control exists.
Right. That's more of a Bane kind of thing.
Well, no, but it's Io, except it's positive.
Right. I mean, that seems like Bane to me.
Well, I mean, Bane is the same.
Right. Anyway, Io's control is basically a little line around your carry.
Io is Shikamaru, but positive.
Okay. Like Nega Shikamaru. I guess Paza Shikamaru. There we go.
Paza Shikamaru.
I'm glad we got that name. It rolls off the tongue. Yeah, anyway, I was a little bit weird, but he can move your shit around. We won't worry too much about Io. He doesn't... It's not a he, it's a fucking ball of light. They're just a fucking ball of light. They don't really control anything. They add nothing to your zone of control, except that they help you gank. Maybe there are a bunch of like little concentrated dots on the outside, but that's it. Reload.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I'd say.
Sven, we talked about earlier as one of the examples we were describing where he has a very concentrated zone of control right around him. And then he has like the blink capability of popping on somebody, but that really just moves his circle rather than extending his circle.
Yeah, I mean, he's got like definitely a circle. It's not just like a point. It's not Doom. Like it's the cleave, and he has an AoE stun, and he gives armor and an aura, and so like he's just a very concentrated dot, or a circle rather, like a bit outside their kind of zone of control, their central area. And then you add IO into the mix, and it's, like a lot bigger, just like a few, random dots sitting around there. But it's still just, like one thing to deal with. So in general, our shapes are like, we have one big dot in the center, that's our Shadow Shaman, one big dot kind of on the, like a bit outside of that, or pretty far outside of that, oh wait, no, you still have one pick.
I do have one pick.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to point out that I hope Valve is listening, because this is what Artifact should be. This would make a cool card
that's your
game.
deck building. You just make shapes, puzzles.
You just make shapes.
Just making shapes.
And then you fight shapes against other shapes, and some shapes are better and some shapes
Wars,
are worse.
That's a game, I think. No, Geometry Wars is a game.
Yeah. Well, Geometry Wars is very different, though. Anyway, okay,
like
so
Dota
I had
all.
last pick, and I was picking mid. So regardless of all the shape stuff, I'm countering a Shadow Fiend mid. And Shadow Fiend mid counters TA, but I think she sucks right now, and I really don't like playing her.
Yeah, she's fucking bad.
So also they had a Venomancer, so I was not going to pick TA.
Yeah.
The other one that I did end up picking, which actually is convenient considering last week's Theorycraft Thursday, where I was ragging on how much I hate QoP, was QoP, because QoP is an amazing Shadow Fiend matchup, despite what our Shadow Shaman told us according to Dota buff stats. And so I ended up picking QoP, and I had a really fun time, despite, again, my kind of distaste for QoP in my games. It felt really good. I fed a couple times because I aggressively blinked, but let's talk more about how we synergize geometry-wise. So how would you describe her kind of zones of control?
I would say, she's got a little bit of control, but it's not really worth talking about, but she's
damage.
She's like a pretty big circle. Like, she's got a shit ton of AoE, and it can go just like really far around. So she just has like a really huge radius that she can do all her shit in. And she also is pretty good defensively, because if you're being defensive, you're always going to get a good angle on your ulti. So I feel like damage wise, QoP fills you out in terms of your AoE. Although it's a little bit risky because she kind of has to get in there, but yeah, like it's difficult when you talk about like radiuses of that sort of thing, because like, oh, we can engage from any angle. But I'm assuming like if the teams are fighting each other head on, the fact that you can blink behind and to the side isn't really fucking relevant. So yeah, she's like, she can go far, and it's a pretty big circle of damage.
Blinking behind is actually very relevant against IO specifically, but in general, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
It was, though, as we were talking about in the game, it was kind of the perfect pick for this, despite I ended up doing well, but I was very uncomfortable on the hero for the first 15 minutes or so. But it worked out because, I got friggin' tri-laned at level 1, actually, so it didn't work out great in the laning phase. But
nothing's going to work out in the laning phase if it gets tri-laned.
I know. I'm just reflecting on the flow of the game for me. But as the game progressed, our heroes had a lot of natural synergy. And the reason, like, this whole geometry thing is actually really helping me conceptualize why certain hero combos are good, because you provide that kind of that large circle that forces a fight to be around it, ideally, or they just run away, which happened once or twice.
Inside of it for at least some period of time.
Yeah, and you're very mobile, and QoP, her ability to be mobile and also deal AoE damage within a small kind of granular AoE synergizes very well with Monkey King. And also I deal a mix of damage, whereas you are all physical, and we build complementary items. Like, I built an orchid, which keeps people in your box or your circle.
Yeah.
And then I built an AC, so you didn't have to. And then I had a veil, which does nothing for you, but it was really good.
Nothing.
So, yeah. Well, let's talk a bit about the flow of the game, shall we?
I'm going to talk a little bit about like the ending result of like how our geometry ends up. So we have Shadow Shaman, who's just like a little kind of dot that we want to protect. It's our little egg baby. And then we have Doom, who's another like very dense dot somewhere else. And then we have Ricky, who's like a pretty large radius around us with like, like a circle of control, like a relatively small one though. And so the deal with when you have things that can like catch people out like that, the more you have of them, the more effective it's going to be. Like if you only have one blink, it's not that great because one person blinks and then nothing happens. But like if you've ever played against a team where they got like their 3 and their 4 got to blink at the same time, it's instantly an entirely different game. Like everyone's getting caught out and everyone's dying because if a Slardar and an Earthshaker blink on you, and then like Slow Crush, and then fucking Enchant Totem, Amplify or Corrosive Haze, whatever the fuck, you lose 20 armor, and then like bam, 500 damage totem to your face. Like that's some crazy shit. But if it's just Slow Crush, and then he just like points at you, and then you walk away, like who gives a fuck? So yeah, if you do have like things that go out pretty far in like radius wise, the more you add on that, the better. And we were very fortunate in that both of our heroes kind of did both. Like Monkey King and QoP can both serve as somewhat like defensive AoE. Like I can just place my ring around us when we get engaged on, or I can jump forward and Q and have aggressive AoE. So I have like defensive and aggressive AoE. And then once we kind of claim that territory, I can place my monkey boys down and then Ricky can find an opening there, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, like that's the big thing about our shapes that are good is that we basically had to build up an entire shape of like an entire AoE, like a base of area control for our entire team with 2 picks. And what we noticed is that one of our guys can go forward and the other ones can't really do a lot. So the only thing we really have to play on is make sure we have some territory and have the ability to like jump forward with our friend. And that's what we got.
Yeah. Also, honorable mention, the other good pick for mid would have been Puck, but I don't play Puck. I also don't play QoP, but I'm more confident in my ability to play QoP in a IMR game than I am in my ability to play Puck in basically any game.
Yeah, I don't know if Puck would have been better or worse if you were good at either.
I don't think Puck necessarily would have been better, but I think Puck would have been good as well.
Yeah. I think our game-ending potential was much better with the QoP.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair. It really depends on how well the Puck did in the mid game.
Sure.
Because like if you could ruin Sven's tempo, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So I mean, we talked a lot about team comps, and let's just talk a little bit about the flow of the game before we close out, just for the sake of it. So how'd your lane go?
So it was pretty good at first. We killed Bristleback once or twice. They zoned him very well, and I'm Monkey King, so I'm good at laning against most supports or most like offlaners that are melee. Shadow Shaman walked off on his own a few times and died. Like one of the things when you're against an offlaner that can kill you as a 5 is you need to be very measured about any time you leave the lane to do something. Like if you can be killed by Bristleback and your carry is right in front of their tower, last hitting at a wave, they have at perfect equilibrium, and you decide to walk around behind the Bristleback that's like outside of experience range, he's just gonna kill you. Like, yes, there are 2 people in that lane, but if you start getting gone on and you run, like towards the bounty rune, like your carry is just never gonna get there. And if they don't kill you, there's no advantage to you being out there either, because by the time your carry walks over there with his, brown boots, if they have them, your CC is going to wear off. Like even a Shadow Shaman, there was time he was like getting killed and running, and he turned around, he got his shackles off, and I'm like, I'm walking, buddy, but this is just not going to work out for us. If I throw my Q down, he's gonna spray his quills on you, so I gotta just hope. And like, it just happened. So he just kind of walked around a lot and died, and then they just kept going top and repeatedly dying. But I just did that Monkey King thing where I punch anyone in front of me, and then I just continue to last hit. Just keep doing it. It was good. Yeah. It's a good lane. I liked it. Like Monkey King wins so many lanes. He's great.
Oh, yeah. My lane was a bit of a mess because, like I said, I got tri-laned at the start because the typical thing, if you have a Shadow Fiend on your team, you want to support him at level 1 for the first creep wave so that he can get some last hits. Also, like we said, I don't play QoP, so I was not particularly good at last hitting with her against Shadow Fiend. But it ended up being fine. Let me see at 10 minutes.
I mean, you were like fine on net worth the entire laning phase, honestly.
Yeah.
Like he really wasn't above you at any point. Honestly, more than 30 or 40 gold.
That's good to hear then. That's good to hear then. Oh yeah, I'm looking at this now. Yeah, I did all right. I killed him, which helped a lot. Ricky rotated to my lane, which was nice. Yeah. Unfortunately, it kind of didn't help you exactly. Bristleback got decent.
It was fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my lane was all right. It was mostly just me being rusty with QoP and not abusing SF as much as possible. Eventually, the Veno and Io left and went back to top with Sven, and they killed Doom a couple times. But, he's a Doom. He got Devour, so eventually he got farm.
Yeah.
After that,
he heeded my advice. He got Infernal Blade. He got Devour, Infernal Blade, and then Scorched Earth at level 5. How much fucking courage do you need to just not have Scorched Earth on Doom? Jesus Christ.
I ganked your lane once, I want to say, and then Shadow Fiend almost took my tower, which kind of put me at a disadvantage, and that was a bad play. Then I rotated around.
I think that was fine, honestly, because that opened you up to do whatever the fuck you wanted. And anytime we attacked mid, we could just walk away, and there wasn't like a counter that they would do. Like that was good, honestly.
I guess it didn't feel good because like Shadow Fiend. I probably could have killed Shadow Fiend if I had stayed in lane. But instead I chose to come bottom and kill your lane. But I think you guys would have gotten kills anyway.
No,
it was a trade.
I wouldn't have gotten that kill if you didn't come there.
I was like, you guys killed IO, so that would have been something. Yeah. Anyway, it worked out in the long run. And then we went top, and top was weird. We had fights, but it's really hard to fight into IO. Like, this IO wasn't particularly good, but an IO is still an IO. Like, the healing was still very difficult to play around.
Yeah,
and
we
our Doom was a
overextended.
bit stingy with Doom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was later, but yeah, we overextended like crazy. Sven was very tanky. So itemization-wise, I went double null, treads, ferrying out clarities, and I think I only needed 1 or maybe 2 pairs of raindrops. Then I went Veil, Lincoln's, Veil, Lincoln's, Orchid, AC. And then I finished Bloodthorn. God, I can't speak.
Yep.
And then I built BOTs because I wanted in the game. So I like the Veil. The Veil felt necessary in this game. You were saying, would you have just rushed the Lincolns? Because that's like a build that people do.
I don't think so. I think armor was too necessary this game. Because if you don't go the Veil, you have no fucking armor on QoP. And we're against Sven, Shadow Fiend, Bristle. And Plague Wards and stuff. Like, the HP regen also is just really good. I don't know, you already have the 2, at least 1 Null Talisman, whether you go that build or not. But yeah, and like, the only thing that you're Lincolnsing is, like the Sven stun, so you can just play around that until, you can't. Like, until Sven has Blink, you're not too worried about, getting caught out by a Sven stun. Like, you have time to work around that. As long as you get it before Sven, has Blink and goes for a big team fight and just catches you and you die, I think it's fine to delay the Lincolns.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you have any big things? Like, our late game was very easy, just in the sense that, like, in the mid game, they won a couple fights. One of the big ones was when we overextended. Then they got Roshan, which let them push. They got a Rax, but then we returned Raxed. But in the very late game, as much as, this was only actually, this was a 56-minute game. It actually was pretty long.
Yeah.
We had a very like metered approach to the super late game that was very simple and very difficult to beat. Would you say that? And I think it was based entirely off of our geometric shapes of control and
I would
and
say
damage
sure.
and all that.
So basically what we did, as you do with Monkey King, is I hit 25. I had the extra Wukong's command ring. We were really thinking about doing the 100 armor, but I mean, the ring is just, the extra ring is just too good.
Your heart told you to build a ring, so it's fair.
Yeah, I just monkey bounced up to the trees that are near the bottom and top side of the tower, or even mid. I monkeyed up to a tree because no one has like a quelling blade. So I just monkey jumped up to one and then dropped my ring in front of a Rax, and then instantly that's our territory. So I placed a big fucking circle of control there, and then instantly, that was our shit. It might as well have been a 10-second Ravage. And then our Shadow Shaman was able to, walk up, drop their wards, and then Ricky can, go in the middle of it and slow people down, focus them in one area, and then do his little circle thing. But basically, the entire thing was we had 3 heroes that could just force their control onto one part of the map in an instant. And we just did that, and then we controlled the Raxes, and then as soon as that was our stuff, our Shadow Shaman, who can kind of only hang out in our territory, was able to also be in there. So we basically just made our base camp in the middle of their fucking fort. It's like when you're playing Age of Empires and the computer makes a fucking barracks right next to your town center. That's what we did to them, and that's just based off our fucking geometry. And they of course couldn't just go into us because then I would just Monkey Man do our shit, and yeah. And then Doom, I think at some point got an ability off.
I'm just visualizing Madden, Madden when you're choosing defensive plays and offensive plays, they show you circles of control.
Yeah, that's
basically what I'm thinking.
That's accurate.
And then also that all allowed me to just skirt along the sides. Like I would kill the IO and then I'd move on to somebody else, maybe kill the Veno, stuff like that. I didn't feel super effective in the late game, but I was effective, I should say, but it wasn't. I feel like I could have done more, but it was just kind of like they were super tanky. Like other than IO, Shadow Fiend had a BKB.
I think the best thing that you have to do there is just like queuing people and then forcing them to BKB, and then you just like blink away, and then you go back and just keep fearing and queuing people. Like QoP's control late game is honestly really good and incredibly spammable.
It's really annoying more than anything. Yeah. Like, it's not hard control. It's just like, wow, I'm slow now.
Yeah, you're just like, when you're against a QoP, you're not supposed to be against also a fucking, I don't know, like a Puck. Like, she basically turns into, I mean, Puck doesn't have a slow and a fear, but like, QoP gets wild good control. I don't even know what hero to equate it to.
I like a Dark Willow.
Sure.
Like you're just randomly getting CC'd and you're getting feared sometimes. I picked the 625 AoE dagger and it was super good. Also, like it was good in fights and it was good for pushes and all that, but it was really good for farming. Like I would just throw it so at one point we were 1 racks down, and this was before we had taken and returned the mid racks. And I would just go over to a wave and just throw daggers on it and scream once, and it would just kill the entire lane of super creeps. And it was just like, oh, okay, like easy. And I would just walk around in jungle, just throwing daggers and getting free gold. It was super, super good.
Yeah, it's a very good talent. And I can't believe we mocked it so hard because everyone was just like, lifesteal QoP. But I knew it in my heart of hearts. I mean, it's cool. It's very good and very fun.
Also, get it at 20 instead of 25, and that makes a big difference.
For sure. Oh, yeah. What was the other? Oh, yeah. The option is the lifesteal. She got 2 new 25 talents. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So you built, I think this is probably the last thing we'll talk about. You built a nullifier.
Well, I mean, I'll go for my entire build because, people were playing the Battle Fury Monkey King, and I mean, it's still really good. Like, I love Monkey King to death. He's not exactly meta, but I don't know. I see him win a lot. The fact that you get the 50% Bound the Strike crit at level 20 is really good. You don't get the extra crit at 25, and it's much lower, but that's not too bad because you get it at 20, so you have a good power spike at 20 now, whereas you didn't before. And the extra Wukong's command ring is just how you high ground. Like, you will high ground every time with that. But in general, my build was, there's this issue that I have a lot, and other people do also, is that they know what items counter certain heroes, but they're not exactly cognizant of when they actually need to counter those heroes. Like, I was thinking I was going to go Battle Fury Silver Edge to stop the Bristleback, but like in the first 25 minutes of the game, the issue is not Bristleback. Like, the issue is Shadow Fiend and Sven killing us, and Venomancer doing insane damage to us, and fucking IOs making people escape and shit. Like, whether or not we kill Bristle in 2 seconds doesn't have a great deal to do with anything. He might even not have Bristleback, I mean, he'll have it max. But anyway, the point is Bristleback's not that big a deal. So I thought better of it and went Echo Saber after Treads, Battle Fury, and then Echo Saber, and then after that I got the Silver Edge. So it was like part, like escape, good for that. We were against a Sven, and I'm relatively tanky, so I could just, Sven was killing me, and I would just like run away and eventually stealth, and then Sven wouldn't do shit. And I could split push really well. Well, yeah, like one of the things that was really good that game, especially when we were behind, is one of the best things on Monkey King is once you've got a decent amount of damage, you can just sit in the tree lines on the edges of the map and just follow your creep wave. And every time your creep wave meets their creep wave, if you want to, you can like jump down and queue and get the entire wave, or you can just stay in the trees and queue across the line of melee creeps, and you'll get most of the gold in the wave. So I would just sit like midway down their lane and just like wipe their wave, and then like walk up, wipe their wave, and then hit their like mid tower twice, and then leap away and like bound the entire half the map away. So like I kept a bunch of people up there so they could never take advantage of being a racks up until we got all our shit together. Like that's the most fun shit to do on Monkey King, because it just feels like bullshit. You shouldn't be able to just be. It's like he has March of the Machines. Honestly, like I basically have March that happens instantly, and I don't need to put myself at risk.
Yeah, and also on top of that, you made space not only to prevent let us deal with the super creeps in mid, but also all the meanwhile Ricky was just farming bottom for free because they were constantly like, oh, having you up there. It's a weird situation where they're like, theoretically we know exactly where he is, but we just can't get to him. So they want to be there anyway because they're like, maybe we can like figure it out. We'll do a scan, and then like I don't know, like somehow. But obviously that's not going to happen. You're going to get away. And since their bodies are up near that area, you allowed Ricky to just free farm bottom, and our Ricky got super fat, even though both of us kind of begrudged the fact that we had a Ricky on our team.
Yeah.
But it worked out. Like Ricky had a bunch of items that honestly the Ricky shouldn't have had because he had way more space than expected.
Yeah, and then after that they all had BKBs, and I needed to be tankier, so it was like either I keep saying Shivas, either AC or Scotty, and originally I was going to say AC because I just ended up fighting Sven a lot and dealing with the bristleback AoE, but Scotty's so fucking good on Monkey King, and just being able to AoE slow everyone through BKB seemed good, so I went with the Scotty, and that way Sam got the MKB, or the AC, which was good. And then after that I just got a Butterfly because it's good, and then I have like infinite attack speed, and I'm always getting my Jingu procs. And then after that, I got that Nullifier. Didn't go BKB this game because they didn't have a ton of lockdown, and like most of the things we were worried about was Venomancer damage. And I figured if I have enough attack speed, I'll be healing up enough that I'll be fine.
Makes sense.
Yeah, the Nullifier was weird. I don't have a lot to say about it.
I want to talk
honestly.
about Nullifier. You didn't really get to use it, did you? Except for like once.
I used it literally once when it didn't matter.
Oh, okay. Well,
it was a good idea though. Game. Like our only issue was their BKBs and bursting us in that time. Like we kept catching them, and then they would just kind of like BKB out, and they would use various items to get away from us. So I just wanted to get a Nullifier, and it's pretty good. It has 5 armor on it too, which is a big deal. And it's just one of the only damage items in the game. Like I was like, okay, I want to do more damage. I have insane attack speed, so I could have gotten MKB because Shadow Fiend had a Butterfly, or I could get Nullifier, which would like stop them from being able to like BKB and my team. Then wouldn't really matter if Shadow Fiend has a Butterfly because my team can just fucking do magic damage and beat the shit out of him. So I went with it. It was fine. I think it was the right call. But I don't have a lot of experience with it. It's a weird item.
Cool.
I don't know. I think it's fine. It sucks. Yeah, actually.
It's interesting. There's a place for it. It's just not a place that I think I find myself in often.
Yeah, it's almost always going to be one of your last items. Oh, I mean, it would have been a great item for Ricky this game because, you get them under the cloud and then you slow them up with the... you don't need to slow them with anything besides the Nullifier, actually. The Nullifier has a slow on it, and then it disables their items. So there's silence and no items. Easy game. It's a Build-A-Bear workshop, only you're making Dooms.
It was handy. All right, so... You can watch our games on youtube.com/4thspirit.
Yeah, mine will actually be there this time because I'm finally logged into the YouTube since losing my computer.
Huzzah! Right. So you can find both of those there. You can find us on Patreon. You can also, that's patreon.com/4thspirit. The Dark Souls first episode is out there, so if you're a patron, you can check that out. Again, if you're not a patron, you can check out the Proud Jakiro episode that he put out on Monday, regardless. You can also support us by giving us iTunes reviews. Those are tremendously helpful. You can find us on Discord, discord.gg/4th. That is a good way to not only find us, but find community members. If you're looking for people to play with, there are tons and tons of people that are always just looking for stacks and whatnot of all different skill levels. You can also find us on Twitter. I'm at Ursinity. Our Proud is at Proud Dota. I said our Proud. I was going to say our show is at Fourth Spirit.
I like to think that I belong. Yeah, like everyone is like friends with me, and they all like collectively.
The communal Proud.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. Probably.
Oh yeah. Correction. Brewmasters. Brewlings. Man, I knew this. I
was so ashamed when you said this.
Yeah, his Brewlings don't all carry auras. It's just the one that he's currently inhabiting the form of. So the Earth one, and then if that's dead, the fire, and then if that's dead, the wind.
Yep. Man, I got flamed on Teach Me Tuesday, and then I knew both the things that you didn't know, and I was like, man, this is just...
What a hypocrite.
Oh, God, I don't know how we function.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yep. Oh well, we'll figure it out.
Tested it.
I'm sure I'll say a couple of wrong things next week, and then
I was
it's just
sure that because I was like, people are like, oh yeah, you get the auras because it affects your brewlings. But that's like one of the facts that I learned when I first start playing the game, and then just like never learned
nobody
the fact
plays
again.
Brew anyway.
I was like, I don't play Brew.
A ton of people play Brew now, but
yeah, but not because they want to, because he's good.
Yeah. Well, some of them want to.
No.
And people like Brew.
No.
Okay. Anyway, goodbye, everybody. Thanks for watching. And, well, if it didn't work out, I don't know, blame your IO.
Blame your shapes.
Blame your shapes. Blame your shapes, everybody. Goodbye. Thanks for our sponsors.
Blame your shapes.
And I think that's about it.